here you will have some links how to create a project. In the Google Cloud Console, on the project selector page, select or create new Google Cloud project. Do that. Check if billing is, even if you have not enabled billing for the first time, it will direct you to do that, do all of that. If not, click this link and make sure you do that. And then you will get some $300 credits, free credits, which you can use. And then towards the end of the project, we'll clean up everything that we're creating. So you're not being, your credits, free credits are not being used beyond the scope of this exercise. Okay, so just the first two steps from this previous link, from last week's code lab link. So that link is also right here. I will wait for 2 more minutes for Mansi and Asmi to catch up. So here is the previous code lab link. I don't want you to go through all the steps. Just go to Google Cloud page. Just go to that link and take the first two steps in the requirements page and follow. So basically where you will land is here, console.cloud.google.com. Since my project is already created, you're not seeing that. But if not, you can always go here, click new project, and it'll ask for the project name, your organization and location and all that. Hit create. If your billing account is not set up, you will be directed. If you're not being directed, follow the link right there in the requirements page. Step 2, make sure that billing is enabled. Copy that link and open whichever browser you're using for the Cloud Console. Open that and you will see the steps to enable billing for your project. So this is pretty simple and straightforward. It is self-explanatory. You don't have to actually spend so much time in this, but I'll give you 1 more minute. I'll hold on right here if you want to follow this. You can also directly select billing from here. You can go here and go to billing, go to the console hamburger menu on top, the 3 lines on top, go there, hit billing. And once you click billing, you should be able to enable or disable it depending on what you have. That's it. All right, can we continue? Or do you want 1 more minute, Mansi and Asmi? All right, so let's go back to the steps. So what is Cloud SQL? Like I said, it is a fully managed database service, which makes it easy for you to set up and maintain your databases rather than having it self-managed. In this case, the cloud provider, which is Google Cloud, manages the database for you, administers the database for you. So this is one of the fundamental, core key relational databases on Google Cloud platform from the list of databases and storage available. So that is one thing we'll see, how to set up an instance and how to create the database and create the table. And Cloud SQL is available for 3 on-prem databases or 3 databases, which you may be familiar with, which is MySQL, Postgres, and SQL Server. So we have Cloud SQL for MySQL, we have Cloud SQL for Postgres, and Cloud SQL for SQL Server. We'll see where you can find all those things and how to set it up. Today, we'll be seeing Cloud SQL for SQL Server. Next is, what is Cloud Functions? Cloud Functions, we have seen this in the last session as well, but still I'll tell you. It is a serverless compute solution. So what do you mean by serverless? You can write quick applications and you can deploy this at the click of a button, and you will get an HTTP endpoint without having to maintain any sort of deployment, lead any server or anything that you will have to create and maintain on your own. So nothing like that. At the click of a button, it's very easy to deploy your application on the cloud and get an endpoint which you can click and then play around with your application. So that is basically what Cloud Functions is. Behind the scenes, it is fundamentally run by Cloud Run, which is also a full-blown, fully extensive compute solution, which is fully serverless, fully managed, and you can scale from $0 to how much ever you're using based on the number of calls you're making to that endpoint, and not necessarily for the number of times your application is deployed. So that was the key thing that you have to understand about Cloud Functions. Now, function, if you're familiar with programming or any, whether it's Java or Python, any programming language, if you're familiar with structured programming languages, you would know that function is a module, is a small single-purpose piece of code that can be reused, that can be used to perform monotonous functions. So similarly, Cloud Functions is something like that, but this can be executed independently. And this has a timeout time, but still your timeout time for Gen 2 functions, we have Gen 1 and Gen 2. We are now encouraging developers to use Generation 2 Cloud Functions, which has a timeout time of about 60 minutes. Sorry, 60 minutes, yes, 60 minutes. So your function has the capacity to run up to 60 minutes before it times out, right? So that's it. So today we'll be building two things. One is creating Cloud SQL instance for SQL Server, and then creating a database, and then we'll write a small Java program to create tables in that particular database. That's it. That's what we'll do. It's very simple. I'm not going to overcomplicate today because we have less time, and I also want you to follow this and make sure you're able to hit the you're at least able to hit the URL, hit the console, and then navigate and find and locate these items there on your console. So that should be good enough as a starter if you're new to Google Cloud. Okay. So now I'm assuming you all have projects, you all have the billing and everything we have set up, the free credits and all. So now let's go to console dot. Sorry, where is that blog? Yeah, console.cloud.google.com. So here, console.cloud.google.com. So go there. I'll put the link as well so that you don't have to type. It's there in the chat. Go to that link. So ready? Once you're there, and the Cloud SQL, it is simply called as SQL. So click that. If you go to the blog, you will see the same things. From Google Cloud Console, go to Cloud SQL. Right? So that's what we have done. I've searched for Cloud SQL here in the search bar, and I got SQL. Just click SQL. That is the Cloud SQL instance. Now, is anyone facing trouble in clicking or searching for Cloud SQL, or we are good? Just ping me if you have problems so I can help you. No? Okay. Perfect. So now, is everybody following along? Through the code or through the console? Or is anyone having trouble with that? Can I get a response on the chat quickly? All right. So we are now in the Cloud SQL page. So you should see SQL instances. So we are going to click instance. And then you see, choose your database engine. So like I said before, Cloud SQL is a database, one of the Google Cloud relational database services, which supports three databases: MySQL, Postgres, and SQL Server. So today we are going to choose this database engine, SQL Server. So click that, choose SQL Server. Here, it's asking for instance ID. For that, I'm going to just give it a SQL Server demo day 2. You can choose whichever one you want, or you can follow along and use the same thing. And enter password, leave it as SQL Server. That is fine too. All right. All this you should be able to see here as well. I've guided you, given the guiding steps in the blog as well. Select SQL Server. So we have done SQL Server. We have choose the database version. Here I've also mentioned the same thing, SQL Server 2019 standard. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to choose development, not production environment, because with your free credits, you want to save as much as you can. So just choose development. I'm not going to change any other configuration, leave it as it is. For region, choose whichever, you can choose Asia South 2, or you can choose US-Central 1. Right now I'm going to leave it as US-Central 1, but remember, whatever region you're choosing here, you should choose in the Cloud Functions as well. So remember which one you're choosing. And I'm going to just keep it as single zone here, because right now I don't want you to exert all the credits you have. Multiple zones is basically for when you want to make it highly available and keep your instance replicated across zones. So I'm just going to keep it as single zone. Show configuration options. I'm not going to change anything else, but you can just take a look if you're interested. But ensure under connections, make sure the public IP is selected. Because in our case, typically we wouldn't be doing that, but in this demo case, we want to enable public IP. So just keep it that way and click create instance. It will take a few minutes. Now I can answer questions if you have. While it is getting created, it will take 2 minutes exactly or 3 minutes. So if you have questions, you can ask me now. You can ping in the chat or you can ask, you can raise your hand and unmute yourself. So we are in this step. We are waiting for the instance to be created. Is everyone able to follow along? Is anyone not able to perform these steps we're discussing right now? Yeah? Thanks, Trevor. Anybody else facing issues? Thomas, Swapnil, Shreyas, Darshan. Able to follow. Vinkal, there is a link that I've pinged to the blog. If not, if you attended last week, you know where to go to find the list of labs. So go to the link and get it. If not, you can find the link to this blog also in the chat. I think I picked a few minutes ago. Let me do it again. Yeah, here is a link to the blog. We are following the blog along. So if you have not created a Google Cloud project, please follow the first two steps of another code lab, which is right here. In the same chat, if you scroll up, there is a code lab link, codelabs.developers.google.com/movies prediction. This is the exercise we did last week. But if you go to this, in the requirements page, which is the second step, you will see how to create a Google Cloud project and how to enable billing and see if you have free credits or not. Only if you have free credits, follow the rest of the steps. If you don't have free credits, just listen in, just watch what I'm doing, or just navigate to the different services, which you can still do without having to create anything. You won't be able to create instances, but at least you can navigate and find out where they are in case you don't want to create. So please make sure you're able to do that and then follow the steps in the blog, which we just did. We are now waiting for the instance to be created, the SQL Server, Cloud SQL for SQL Server instance to be created. So in my scenario, I still see that it is rolling. It's not complete yet, so I'm going to wait for another minute. Should be done anytime soon. It's still going on. Still getting created. I'm going to wait. So anybody got their instance created, completed? Creating billing account is required in order for you to create the instance. Yes, it is required, but you will get free credits. So don't worry, you won't be charged. It is just a the first step that you need to create. Going forward for the next 3 sessions, I'm hoping to get some free credits to give you all at the start of the session. But right now, I don't have that created yet. So I'm still waiting on a few processes and approvals. But then once that is available from next session onwards, I'm planning to give free links. But right now, I don't. What links, Gagana? What links are you asking for? Gagana, you can unmute and ask me a question if you have. I don't understand what you want. Gagana, you there? Production and development. So production environment, like it's very self-explanatory, right? Development is where you will have minimal configuration setup. There will be by default there are certain things that are different. You can just select production and see before creating the instance. You can just select production and see what all is enabled. Maybe there is load balancing enabled. There are some um, replicas created or stuff like that. So that you will see while you're creating the instance itself. In that step, if you choose productions and click on the configuration table, the configuration features below, you will see what the difference is. Basically, the production instances will have production ready features. Some they're all like the CPU capacity and whatever it is, the space that is allocated, all that is set in a higher limit as compared to a development instance. So that is basically the difference. There are certain minute details which you can see for yourself if you click on that on a selected instance, and then you will see the features following that. All right, now we have the instance created. I got a green tick. I'll move on to the next step. Mayank, did I answer your question? Okay. So can I move on to the next step, everybody? Which database engine was chosen? Mansi, we chose SQL Server, Cloud SQL for SQL Server. So that is what we are doing today. We chose SQL Server and we created, that's it. I think you chose SQL Server and then you made sure that you chose I don't know what are the changes we did. Nothing much. Development, yeah. Between production and development, you should choose development. And just make sure your public under connections topic, you should see if your public IP is enabled. And then that's it. That's what we did right now, nothing else. And then click create instance. So once that is created, I'm going to move on to the next step. Go to, let's create a user first, okay? If you go to users, you would see a default user called SQL Server. Click the three dots and change password and choose SQL Server again. Just type in SQL Server and hit OK. Okay, just for the sake of it, I'm going to do that. I said usually you should generate and store that, but right now I'm just doing this. So yeah, select the user, create the user, and then move on to databases. The user is already there. You're not creating anything. The SQL Server user is there. I just created a new password for it, which is SQL Server itself. Now I'm going to databases. So click create database. Oh, sorry, I have to go to the new instance that I created, right? SQL Server demo 2. Okay, I'm going here. Go to databases and then click create database. Somebody entered the meeting. Okay. Click create database and you have to give a database name. So I'm going to give it as database demo day and hit create. So this will be quick. Create a database. So all we have done right now is we have chosen Cloud SQL for SQL in SQL Server as the engine. We have created the instance in a development mode. We have enabled public IP for this instance. And then we have created, we have set the password for the SQL Server user. And we have created a new database called database demo day. Okay. So you can do the same thing if you have a local on-prem SQL Server client. You can actually try, or if you have an editor, sorry, SQL Server editor, you can actually try connecting to this instance and see if you're able to create this or see this database there. That you can do as well. But in this case, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to programmatically test a few things. That's it, right? Now, If you go to the overview page of this Cloud SQL instance, you can see the connection name right here. The connection name is comprised of your project name, the region name, and the database name. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and write it some or just paste it somewhere. Just keep your database name and make sure you remember the username and password in the users section. The username is SQL Server, and whatever password you gave for it in change password, just remember whatever you gave. So these three things you should remember. Now we are done with that's it. It hardly took 5 minutes, right? We were talking through this, so it took some more time, but it hardly took 5 minutes to set up a Cloud SQL database instance, create a user, and create a database. Right now, we are done with all that. Now, let's programmatically create tables in this particular database, right? Now, what I want you to do is go to Cloud Console again, console.cloud.google.com. In the search bar, search for Cloud Functions. So Cloud Functions is what I told you, the lightweight serverless compute option for your functions. So I'm going to choose Cloud Functions. And you're landed on the Cloud Functions console. Since I have a lot of functions created in the past, I'm seeing so many. Yes, I will send you the recording for this, but everybody is able to follow so far? Just give me a yes or no, a couple of yes or no, and then I'll continue with Cloud Functions. Cool. Thanks everyone. So go to Cloud Functions. So here, since I have a few Cloud Functions selected, Hamza, you've raised your hand. Yes. You have a question, Hamza? Or you just wanted to say yes? Oh, okay, no worries. Sophia, can we follow on and do the lab later? Yes, that is also an option. No problem. All right, so now we have landed on the Cloud Functions page. I'm going to click on Create Function. So here in the environment, the blog will suggest you to do first gen because this blog was written a while ago, but now we have second gen, which is what I encourage you to follow because second gen has a lot more cool features like extended timeout period, extended powerful infrastructure, advanced control over performance, scalability and regions and everything. And also some more support for languages and also event sources for triggers have also improved. So go for second gen and choose a function name. In this case, I'm going to give a function name as demo day function or just demo day. Okay, demo day 2. I'm going to leave the region as US-central1 because this is the same region as the region I've chose for the database instance as well. And here in the trigger, I'm going to do allow unauthenticated invocations for now. Because this is a public website, a public endpoint that I want to create. But typically, in your production application or anything that you secure, you will want to use require authentication and provide authorization for your API using Cloud IAM settings. That's a whole topic as to how to do identity and access management. There is documentation for that, which you can find in Cloud Docs, Google Cloud documentation. So in this case, I'm going to click on allow unauthenticated invocations. And then that's it. No other change. I'm just going to leave it at minimum number of instances is 0 so that it won't charge me for anything that is, if I'm not using it, won't charge me. So I'll just leave it at 0. When I say use, it means calling your endpoint. And then I click next. Now I'm going to choose the runtime as Java because like I said, we are going to write a Java Cloud Functions. And then I'm going to, of the 3 options, I'm going to choose inline editor. Now you have 2 options. If you know the structure of this, you can also import the code from a zip file or from cloud storage. But in this case, I'm going to edit the code inline, like right here. It's good practice to either import your code from Git or something and then have a zip export and then upload the zip from here or zip from cloud storage, but I'm using inline editor to show to you what I'm changing and all that, right? So that way it's easier for you to do when you're doing it. For you to understand what I'm changing and how I'm accessing between how I'm accessing Cloud SQL from Cloud Functions. So you see, this is a Java application. So you have pom.xml to define the dependencies for the classes that we'll be accessing. And then the actual source code is in hello http function.java. So this is a code skeleton that you will get. Please follow along. If you hit create function and select all the configuration details that I told you, you will also land on this page, which will give you a skeleton Java code. This is what you will see. So don't change anything yet. Now there is a GitHub repo, which I'm going to ping here for you. Or if you're following the blog, which I gave to you before, if you scroll down, the code is right. The GitHub link is there in the blog as well. The link to the pom.xml dependencies and the link to the actual source code is right there. So click those links, or I can give you the link to my GitHub so you can later on do it on your own. Oh, sorry. Let me just copy. I'll ping it here. Yeah. So if you go to that link, you will see two files. One is the source file and one is the pom.xml file. Right now, I have the GitHub repository open here. This is what you will see if you go to that link. You will see example folder and pom.xml file. So I'm going into the example folder. I'm going to example.java. So in the previous version, which is Gen 1, the class was named as example, but in Gen 2, it is named as hello http function.java. So I'm not going to copy the code exactly as it is because our package structure has changed in Gen 2. So I'm just going to copy the first part, the import part from here. And I'm going back to my Cloud Functions function, which we are editing here. So I'm going to replace the import functions that I copied from my Git because the package name is different here. No, I'm not going to replace the function as it is. And then I'm going back to my GitHub repo. I'm going to the file and I'm taking in the first part, which is the service method, which calls another method, which is right below, we have defined right below. And we have two lines. One is the buffered writer, which is basically writing to the console, and what I want to write once the table is created. So those are three lines I'm copying. I'm going back to create functions. I'm replacing the skeleton code that we have got with what I'm copying from here, right? Now I've called this method create connection poll. Now I have to define the method, right? So let me go back to my GitHub repo and copy the function definition, also some variables which I've used. So I'm going to copy the code for the function and paste it right here. Everything else, nothing else changes for you. What the function does is pretty much connect to the database, make sure it's connected, and then create a table, and that's it. Once it comes back to the main the service method on top, it will print, hey, successfully created your table or something of that sort. Okay, that's it. Now what I have to change here is the credentials. Typically, it's not a good practice to keep the credentials or anything of any constant like that in your code. So the best practice is to use the secret service in Google Cloud. There are multiple ways. You can use variables, environment variables, or the best method is to use the secret from Google, secret service from Google Cloud. But that is also available, mentioned in the blog. But for the sake of this particular exercise, I'm just keeping it right here. So you know what all there are only 3 configuration changes we're making. Just for saving time, I'm going to do that right here. What you need to copy and from where and what variables we're using. So I would recommend using environment variables or save the credentials in your the credential service that we have. Okay, so what are the 3 things we're going to change is the instance definition, username, password, and database name, right? So instance connection name, where you can find this basically. Go to your instance where you create it, go to overview, and this is basically where I have it. So I'm going to copy this connection name and I'll replace this one that I have right here. Username, we created, we didn't create SQL Server as a username, and we changed the password to say SQL Server. And the database name, we just created the database, right? Go to databases. Database demo day, that is the name of the database that we created. So I'm going to replace all this. Again, don't follow this method of defining these variables. This is just for the sake of two things. One is to keep it simple to show you what I'm changing, and two is to save time right now in the call. So I'm just doing this, and nothing else changes. I'm going to hit deploy. Now it'll take a minute. If you have any errors, you will see that right here. But in this case, it is just creating that method. Let's see what it's doing. So it has to stop swirling. Now I'll go back and ask you what you have done. Do you have any? I'll pause for a minute here until it loads. So if you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand or just ping me in the chat. So it is still creating the function. Are you able to follow along so far? Like what a simple Cloud Function does and how we can, or what is Cloud Function basically? I'll show you. Once it completes deployment, you will see how easy it is for you to deploy this method or deploy any program quickly. Show the code again. Yeah, I will show. Let it finish this one. I can't show you until it completes deploy. Actually, I can go to source here. No, it is not. Yeah, right here. Can you see? Can you see my screen while it's deploying? As we are waiting, fail to deploy. So wait a minute. There are some issues right now. Oh, sorry. One thing we forgot. That is the error we've got. We've got dependency error. It can't find what servlet is, where it is, and all that. So we have imported so many classes. We have not added the dependencies to pom.xml. That is the problem. So again, go to GitHub. Go to this repository, go to the project, Cloud Functions _ Cloud SQL, go to pom.xml. So this, nothing has changed here. So I'm going to copy the entire pom.xml as it is. Go back to your method. Sorry, go back to your Cloud Functions. Go to edit and redeploy. So I'm going to edit pom.xml. Oh, snap. Since it did not even deploy one time, it threw this error. So now I have to do everything again, whatever we did. So I'm going to Cloud Functions, create Cloud Function again. Let me quickly do that. Because we have not even deployed these functions once, it won't show you what it's doing. Function, US Central 1, allow unauthenticated invocations, go to next. I'm choosing Java 11. I'm choosing inline editor. Go to pom.xml, Control A, delete and paste whatever you copied from my repository. Now, what this one contains, pom.xml in Java, if you're a Java programmer, you're familiar probably with it. It contains all the dependencies or all the classes that your your actual Java function, the source code is referencing. So that's what we've replaced right now. So for the actual source file, I'm again going to my project repo project folder. I'm going to the source code right here, example.java. I'm not copying the entire thing because our package structure has changed from Gen 1 to Gen 2. This code was written for Gen 1. I'm doing Gen 2 right now. So I'm just copy pasting the statements. So I copied the import statements. I'm pasting them. Now I'm going to copy the rest of the code as well. Go the body of the service method. So I'm going to paste that as well here. Okay, as you can see in this this is the method that calls another method, right? Create connection pool. So we will define the create connection pool method right now. But the next two steps are like basically instantiating the buffered writer object, and then we are just successfully printing or writing to the console that you have successfully created a table in SQL Server. So, and this create connection pool is just the name of the method. That method is what is going to create the table in the database, right? So I'm going to GitHub. I'm copying the rest of the code from here. I'll replace it. Sorry, not replace. I'll just paste it. And I'll make those 3 changes which I did before. I think it is called database demo day. Yeah. Need the instance name. Again, go back here. Go to overview. copy this connection name, go to the functions, paste that, now deploy. Sorry about the delay. Anyway, it's creating the function right now. So let's give it a minute. Once it completes, now going back to the blog while it is. So we have completed all these steps, source code, creating function, we have hit deploy, right? All that we have done. Just one more step. Once it successfully completes, you should just be able to see the result. I'll show you how to see that. Any questions so far while we are waiting for the function to be deployed? Winkle is happy that we had to re-edit. We had to edit and deploy again. It'll take a minute, I think. Yeah, so you can see the green tick. The build is created, so we are not having any issues with the code this time. It is now creating the service. Service means endpoint, right? It is creating, it is going to give your code an endpoint, basically. So click trigger, right? On the trigger section, or even on the top itself, you can see the URL. So this URL is the face of your app. In this case, it is a one-page application. So basically, whatever we wrote on the console, you can see here. So I click that. So it is now creating the database, the table in the database. Because only if that step is complete, it will show that success message here. So let's go back to the code and review the code one more time, what we have written. So you're familiar. Go to the source tab. If you see right here, what we have edited, what we have done right here in the first step is it is calling the function create connection pool. And then inside the create connection pool, we are connecting to that instance, the database, using the username password we provided, using the socket factory property. And then we have provided all this idle time and all those things. Yes, see, it has successfully completed. We've got